Reed, thank you very much for your time tonight. It's good to see you.
Well, thank you for having me.
So we have spoken to your opponent, Matt Zeller. He's a Democrat, and he made a number of claims that I think you probably want to respond to. Right off the bat, he says that you're a career politician and a medical debt collector running at a time when people don't want the status quo. Now, he also calls you an incumbent, but you haven't been in office for quite some time, almost a year.
That's absolutely correct, and never served in Congress, and we're coming at this from the outside.
So how is that then that he is casting you as an insider, and what is your response to that when it comes to trying to contrast yourself between Mr. Zeller and you?
You know, it's troublesome to hear Matt go down this path of taking these attacks and trying to label us as something that we are not. The bottom line is that we're standing up for the people of the Southern Tier. We've put over 70,000 miles on the car, and we're coming at this, and we're upset and we're concerned, just like all the people in the Southern Tier are and in this district, and we're going to stand with them come November 2nd.
You know, this district actually became open. It used to be in GOP hands until '08, and it became open because of a scandal involving Eric Massa. How much of an impact is that having on the race, and are you planning on bringing that up? Because, of course, the Republicans would very much like to take back the House, and this seat could be figuring into that plan.
Well, you know, we got into this race well over a year ago. We took on Eric Massa. A lot of people said we were foolish. They said Obama had it all figured out, was going to be there for 8 years. And all I said was the policies that are being put forth on the national level and that Congressman Massa was champion were not the right policies for America, and definitely not the right policies for this part of New York State, and this part is my home. And so we stood, and we've been running strong. And you know, what happened with Eric Massa is something I hope goes in the history books and is behind us. I want to move forward, and I wish, you know, we're going to be focusing on the issues going forward.
Okay, you've run an ad that is sort of focusing largely on, or taking an approach that many of the Republicans are taking, which is Democrats are too connected to Barack Obama, too connected to Nancy Pelosi. Yet Obama, according to a Siena poll, he's split in the district. 48-49 is the favorable, unfavorable. Now, do you actually think that resonates with people of the 29th?
Well, what I think it is, it shows our disagreement with the big government policies that Nancy Pelosi and President Obama represent to me. With the passage of Obamacare being the classic example of big government being the solution for all of our problems that the President and Nancy Pelosi are championing. To me, it's not about big government. It's about becoming a limited government. It's about becoming a society that focuses on individual accountability and individual responsibility. That's what I firmly believe, and that's what we're going to represent when we go down to Washington, D.C.
So to hear you call the health care reform bill Obamacare, I would assume you would have voted no.
Absolutely, and I stand for 100% for the repeal of it. I know my opponent does not want to repeal it, and he tries to say that he would have voted against it, but if you don't stand for repeal, in my opinion, that's just political maneuvering, and that's exactly what he's doing.
How do you propose then that the people who are getting coverage or stand to get coverage under the health care reform bill would be receiving it if it was repealed?
You know, my whole point on the health care problem is that what Obamacare failed to take into account or to address was the health care cost issues. And if we can drive down health care costs, then insurance costs will go down. And if we make insurance costs affordable, then people will be able to purchase and buy health care coverage. And that's what Obamacare did, in my opinion. It just totally missed the boat, and it was just a political accomplishment that they had to achieve. And the bottom line is we're going to talk about tort reform. We're going to talk about weeding out waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to actually do these things so that costs can be driven down.
But in other words, so your idea is that if in fact health care insurance was more affordable, then people who don't have it would be able to purchase it privately. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Would you mandate that those people would have to do it?
Yeah, that to me, that's another sign that Obamacare is completely out of touch with the American people. They don't want any more federal government mandates. The insurance mandate is the fundamental problem with Obamacare. That's why we stand for its repeal.
Okay, but what if people who don't have health insurance go, for example, to hospitals, and that causes them to have emergency care when things are too far gone, and that drives up the cost for everyone?
Yeah, and that's how we have to focus on changing the healthcare delivery system. Right now, we've talked about it on the campaign trail many a times. We have a pay for per service system. What we have to do is try to encourage people to maybe look at ways of getting health care covered in areas that are different than how they're being provided now. A lot of people go to the emergency room as their first resort. The emergency room should be the last resort. And when I talk about the pay-for-service system, what I'm talking about is that doctors, providers, hospitals, they have incentive, if you would, because they bill per service as opposed to per outcome or per condition. There's some great things I know Cleveland Clinic is doing, the Mayo Clinic is doing, at looking at ways to deliver healthcare services in a way that it doesn't incentivize more and more services, but does it in an efficient manner and gets billed accordingly on a per outcome or per condition basis.
Now, Matt Zeller also says you want to privatize Social Security. Is that true?
That's just false. That's just false. It's part of the negative campaign rhetoric that we're seeing that's being put forth against us. And you know what? I am confident that people of the district, people of the area, are just sick and tired of it, because I'm sick and tired of that negative campaign.
Well, then what is your
we're going to
position
focus on
Social
the issues.
Security?
I think the issue of Social Security, it's such a large part of our federal budget that we have to look at ideas on ways to drive it more efficient and make it affordable, because it's bankrupt right now. It's in a situation that if it goes unchecked, I know my opponents has been quoted in the local papers say, well, just leave it alone. Well, if we leave it alone, it's bankrupt already. It's not going to be there for tomorrow, and I understand that people rely on that. And so what I'm talking about is we need to force the debate on all solutions to be held openly and candidly with the American people.
Including
and that's what we're going to do.
privatization? Would that be a possibility? Open to debate, the issue of privatization?
Yeah. Sure. What I would say is I'm opposed to privatization of Social Security. But if you take the position that we cannot even talk about it, that is not going to be productive. I think we need to vet all ideas and have an open and honest debate with the American public, and that's what we support. Now, I'm opposed to privatization, but if you just take the mindset that we can't talk about it, we need to leave it alone, that's not going to be productive.
So according to the Siena poll that came out in late September, you are ahead, actually 44-30 of Matt Zeller, with 26% of people undecided. But you're also quite ahead when it comes to the Tea Party. And I'm just curious, the standard bearer in New York this year is Carl Paladino. He's running for governor, as you know. Do you support him?
Yeah, I do. I'm 100% in support with Carl. We've campaigned a lot. As I put those 70,000 miles on the car, I've been at many events with Carl. And, he'll be the first one to tell you that sometimes he does things that are, probably not well thought out all the way through. And, he is not polished like many politicians are. And my whole point, though, is that Carl is standing for the message of we have to get our government under control. We have to get our fiscal house in order. And that's what we stand for. And that's why I resonate with him, and I support him, and we'll do whatever we can to help him.
So even you're embracing him, all told, regardless of what it is that he has said about Shelley Silver, for example, or about Governor Patterson, or about any other number of controversial statements that he has made. You're embracing all of that, whole thing, whole package.
Well, what I'm embracing is Carl's primary philosophy and message that he believes in, is that we have to have the hard discussion with the American people, with the people of the state of New York, and we need to fundamentally change how we do business. And I support that message. Some of his situations and wordings and things like that, Carl will be the first one to tell you that he's probably apologized for that type of thing. But the fundamental message cannot be lost in this debate, and the fundamental message is that we have to change how we do business, and that's what we're doing, and that's what Carl will do, and there's no doubt in my mind he will do that.
Well, I think he's actually apologized if people were offended, but he hasn't taken back any of his statements. So he is certainly a plain-spoken
Sure.
guy. In the meantime, I want to thank you very
and
much.
that's what we need more of.